Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Brighton podcast, brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. And we are currently one of the league leading podcasts. Today I am joined by my good friend Jamie G. How are you, mate?
I'm doing fantastic, on top of the world and on top of the league.
Oh, absolutely, mate. So, today is a Wildcard Wednesday. So, what we're going to be talking about is our new signing, Matt O'Reilly. We've got some interesting things to speak about that. That's going to come up first. And then in our second segment, we're going to be talking about our transfers out and how they're doing. So that will feature Facundo Buonanotte, Abdullah Sima, etc. And then in our final segment, we're going to be speaking about if we reckon there'll be any more incomings and maybe even some more outgoings. We don't know. Billy Gilmore, I'm looking at you, mate. So, just a quick one. How we feel? Obviously, I haven't been on the pod for a while. How are we feeling about the game just gone?
Oh, well, the game just went. Couldn't ask for much better. A 95th minute winner. God, the emotions were high. We were celebrating. We were together. It was exciting times. Jumping into each other's arms. It was a loving moment.
It was very good, mate. It was very good. I was up out of my seat when that last goal went in, mate. I almost did a knee slide, mate. It was mad. On the carpet as well. Right. So, we're going to talk about Matt O'Reilly quickly. Sorry to cut you off, but we're going to talk about Matt O'Reilly quickly. I just want to open this with something here a Celtic friend of mine sent to me literally moments before the pod started. So this is a quote, okay? So this is about Matt O'Reilly. I am reading it off my phone now. So, slick and smooth operator, genuinely glides into space without you noticing. A great eye for goal, and with more technical players reading his passes, you'll see his impact even more. Played in a 6-role too and excelled. So, with that being said, Gara, what are your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, he said one thing that he pointed out that I kind of noticed as well, just watching him, going back through some Celtic games that I watched and some highlights, is he mentioned about if he's got better players around him, you'll start seeing him come out with maybe more assists, even though he had like 18 last season in all games. And I think that is something you can see because he seems very intelligent. He always seems to know where the player is running to, the kind of weight of pass. There were so many occasions where he would play just a first touch pass, like a little 1-2 to the Japanese strikers, Farashui, whatever their names are. And I know the other one, it's Maida, but yeah. God knows how you say the second one. But yeah, you could see that creativity in his game and the playing of the passes through. He always looks like he's got, if someone is coming over his shoulder, he looks kind of like he's free to get wiggle out of it, then play potentially a cutback or find a bit of space to then play like a lofted ball to the back post or a through ball or something. He always looks quite calm. It's kind of what I think Hertzler seems to kind of like in terms of him also buying Matt Swiffer. Mm-hmm. Matt Swiffer's very calm, composed, doesn't seem like he gets rattled on the ball.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of feel with Matt O'Reilly. I think Hertzler has this archetype of a player that he wants in his midfield, and I think Matt O'Reilly seems to fit that.
Yeah, 100%. What I just want to touch on quickly actually is just as my friend said in that message, I think not only does the long passing seems to be is a pretty high attribute on his list, and not only that, but I feel like we saw in the game on Saturday, James Milner making quite a lot of third man runs. which was a sort of surprise to anyone because he was going, especially in that second half. He was appearing everywhere, winning free kicks, all sorts.
He had a shot cleared off the line.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I think from someone like Matt O'Reilly, where one of his actual attributes is, because that's not what James Milner really does now, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And with someone who can make those intelligent runs into the box, you say finding the long pass out wide, or especially to our wide players as well, finding the long pass out wide and then managing to ghost into the box, I think could be a really a real deadly weapon. Because I have seen that when the ball does come to him in the box from a cross or from a cutback, he's in absolute acres all the time. And like that is you think that some people, maybe a sort of casual, would think, oh, that's just like luck. But no, you're timing it so when you arrive into that area, the space is going to be there. And it is a skill that is really hard. So you're thinking about Gerrard, Lampard, those sort of players who make those runs into the space. And I mean, it could be pretty key for us going forward. And also, like you said about the Hertzler, the sort of archetype of a player that he wants, with the whole the sort of floating tens. You basically have to be able to play in the 10, in the 8, and in the 6 all at the same time. And I think that he's a player that can potentially do that. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, I mean, it's those crashed into the box. I mean, he scored 19 goals last season, and that kind of a lot of it stems from those late runs into the box. I mean, he scored every kind of type of goal as well: headers, little half volleys, I guess, from floating balls in. So I think that is a strength that, especially if he's being given the space to run into the box, that's something where he can thrive. But on the passing as well that he has to his game, I think every single passing stat, although it was fair enough, it was Scotland and the Scottish Premiership, which isn't the highest of levels, but every single passing stat, he was at least in the top 3. So it kind of shows that there is a player there. The only concern is that he was doing this in the Scottish Premiership, and how will that rank? How will a game against Ross County go up against when he's playing Chelsea or someone like that? Will it translate? That is always the concern when you grab a player from like a lesser league. The concern is always, will the traits translate? And I don't know what you think about that.
I think it's a tough one because I feel like you can look at it really. I'm not a big believer of like, oh, they've come from that league, so that means that obviously this step up is something that they can't make. You have to also remember that he's 23 currently, and the room to improve is still there. And just for example, we'll look at Virgil van Dijk. He's obviously come from Celtic. Well, he was in Holland first, but then he went to Celtic, and then you could see that there was a player in there that had the potential to basically sky's the limit. And now you look at him now, and you think, well, I mean, if he can do it, then obviously the chance for anyone is able for anyone to do it.
And he has been good enough to garner interest from Juventus and also be able to get a call up from Denmark as well. Maybe not start in those games, but he's been able to get the call up at least. And I think in the Champions League, he's played at the highest level of the Champions League, and he got 3 assists out of 6 games. But I mean, that's at least a positive sign as well.
Well, 100%. I always think that you just need to allow these things time, and you will soon see. I mean, we have Arsenal on the weekend. That if there's going to be a test, it's going to be that. Do you know what I mean? So,
do you reckon he's starting against Arsenal?
He has. To be fair, he's played twice already this season in like actual competitive games.
His match fitness should be there.
Yeah, I imagine that he's also had a full pre-season. So,
and I think. Will they roll with Milner again or potentially Billy Gilmore? I mean, especially if Matt Swiffer has another knock, we can't be. Well, I say we can't be. They were actually pretty decent against Man United, but I reckon that is a game I actually could see him playing.
Yeah, I think so. Because obviously we don't know if Billy Gilmore's going to, because Napoli is still interested, even though they signed McTominay, I think. I mean, that isn't the game on the day the window closes. 31st?
Yeah, Sunday 31st, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Sunday 31st.
Or was it the 30th?
Saturday, whatever day.
Yeah, Saturday's the 31st, yeah, so the window will be closed then, so I imagine he'll be on a plane if he is going. Anyway, should we get to some ads and then we'll move on to the next segment?
Ads.
So, after the ads, we're going to be talking about some transfers out. Ibrahim Osman and his visa troubles and some Kinder Bueno with Buonanotte as well. So we will catch you after the ad breaks, guys.
Do you have a story to tell that the world needs to hear? Have you struggled with reaching new audiences who are engaged with your story? It might be time for you to start a podcast. Let me tell you about a platform we use here at Global Sports Podcast Network. Zencastr makes it easy to start a high-quality broadcast built from growth from day one. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes ums, ahs, you knows, and 22 other speech patterns, Zencastr makes it super easy to start a podcast that sounds great. Ready to tell your story? Check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
And we are back with segment 2 of the Daily Brighton podcast. So this is going to be a little bit of a shorter segment, purely based on the fact that quite a few of these players haven't actually played yet. But Loan Watch. We are on Loan Watch. We have had our eyes peeled. Gary, what can you tell us, mate?
Well,
you can start wherever you want. Any player, I don't mind.
There's only one player we should be starting with, and that is Facundo Buonanotte. He is actually getting minutes for Leicester. He is their starting cam for the last 2 games and was, I think, their highest rated player in their last game against Fulham. He got the assist of their only goal. So he has actually looked impressive. And I think what a brilliant move from our board to get Buonanotte this playing time at a Premier League team where he will get regular minutes. Obviously, because Leicester are in financial issues, they can't really bring anyone in.
No.
So they're not going to find a player to go in his position, per se. So there's a chance of him actually starting all season and then him coming back with, as we've mentioned on this podcast before, there's no option to buy. He's going to come back a better player with Premier League experience, and then we can either, if he continues to impress Leicester, we can potentially sell him on because we are quite stacked to that position anyway. Or we can just keep him, stash him, and then roll him out in some games when obviously we'll have Champions League next season, so we'll need some squad depth.
I love that you've said we can either keep him as stashing in and roll him out like he's a Pokemon. What is that about? Absolutely no. In that last bit that you just said, there was absolutely no care about his career. No. I think that for someone like him, I was of the assumption that he was good enough to play in the Premier League, but maybe just not good enough to start week in, week out for Brighton. I think that was pretty evident from last season anyway. But the best thing about this is that if you assume that Leicester are going to be, and obviously it might not be the case, but if you're going to assume that Leicester are going to be in a relegation battle, every game is going to be so important. And when you're coming to the back end, that's as nitty-gritty as it gets. It's just as important as a title race or race into the top 4, because obviously the stakes are so high for you to go down. So I think, and especially for Leicester as well, obviously with the financial issues, there's absolutely nothing better than getting a little bit of TV cash money injection. So you obviously want to stay in the league. But it's good to see him thriving out there. He looked good against Tottenham. He did. I thought he looked good against Tottenham. Tired towards the end, but I still think that it's going to do him the world of good, and hopefully comes back a transformed player.
Yeah, I thought he did brilliant against Tottenham. Like, he was kind of, they were Leicester were miserable in that first half, and he was kind of the only one that's sparking any little life into them. And then I think Jamie Vardy took on that role in the second half. But yeah, he was very good against Tottenham. It was good to see.
100%. So what I want to do quickly is I just want to touch on the Osman situation, because I have seen on Twitter that he actually hasn't got his either his visa or his work permit. I think it was his visa. I did see a fan say, "Oh, he's not even going to get used." I was thinking, big man, you need to chill out. It's literally been one game. You need to calm down. Okay. They play Ajax next, I'm pretty sure. So I'm curious as to whether he'll be risked in a game of that stature straight away. What are your thoughts on that quickly?
As that being their first game, it is Ajax as their first game. Yeah, it's a good point, especially if he's not really had time to integrate into the squad because he's got these work visa or work permit / visa issues. Then that's a game obviously they take very, very seriously, and I can't imagine, like you say, him being kind of thrown out there to the wolves to go, yeah, welcome to training. Now you're playing Ajax. 19 years old in a country he's never been to. Yeah, have fun, mate.
And they're going for a transition, obviously, because Slot's not there, so it's a new manager as well.
They lost a couple of players as well.
But
I think from there, I think the thing I like about the Osman loan to Feyenoord is that it's like a good league for someone to develop. I mean, we've seen so many times players have gone there, got better, or gone there, kind of thrived. I mean, Anthony looked like an absolute baller out there. We managed to Ajax managed to sell him on for 80 million.
Yeah, that's just daylight robbery, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. And then we've got a player, obviously, that played there last season in Minter, who Osman is kind of following in his footsteps. Hopefully he can show the same level of ability. But the amount of wingers that have come from that league, shown what they can do, and then come back to like a top league and proven themselves, I guess, is pretty impressive. So I like that loan move for him.
100%. So quickly, just a last one. Barco, maybe one that we weren't expecting, I think. And do you think it was a wise decision, considering that we don't know there's question marks over Estupiñán's fitness and whether he can shrug those injury issues off? And obviously we've spoke quite a bit about Jack Hinchelwood maybe not potentially
being a
thriving in that role. So
yeah, that did catch us all off guard. I think we'll safely admit that. I was not expecting for him to be loaned out. I thought we were actually talking about him starting, weren't we? Like him competing with Estupiñán for an actual starting role later in the season, and then suddenly he gets loaned out. I'm happy with him getting loaned out in terms of he's still young. He's going to a very good league, to a team that like to defend. He'll be playing in European football, so it's a good place to be. But would you have liked to see him stay at Brighton?
I think he needs to. I didn't expect him to leave, but I thought with the potential of Kadioglu coming in, and that is Kadioglu's main position, but I imagine he'll play him right back. But if he does come, but I do think that he was physically not quite there for the Premier League.
Yeah.
And some of the back post, the switching off at the back post and things like this is stuff that will kill you in the Premier League. So
especially when you're that small.
Yeah, and because the jump that he made from where he was prior to the Premier League is massive, and and to be honest, La Liga is a great league. So I think the experience at a top league, being able to play regularly, would do him the world of good. So hopefully it does work.
Yeah,
100%. We are going to move on to our third segment. So after this break, we're going to talk about any more incomings. Will we be hearing the Shane O'Mac, here comes the money, anymore this season, this window? We will catch you after the break, guys.
This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football, and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts the fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. Global Sports Podcast Network. Every club, every day.
Hello. Sorry, I was just having a cheeky little sip of my drink. So, we are back, and it is unfortunately the final segment of this daily Brighton podcast. And, Gera, who do you think, if anyone, we're going to see coming in? Who do you think?
Now, there have been rumours, and this is someone I think we should look to get in, or I think... So there's rumours that we're linked with Kadioglu from Fenerbahce, who can play... I think he's primarily a left-back.
Yeah.
Can also play right-back. He's a bit versatile in that sense. He's an attacking full-back, more so. And we saw he was very impressive for Turkey in the Euros.
Yeah.
Can't say I've watched much of Fenerbahce. Sorry to all the listeners to disappoint. It is a league I don't have on my subscriptions.
How do you even get a Fenerbahce? Whatever the league's called. How do you get that? I'd love to know.
It's some sus sites, I reckon. Some of the listeners are definitely on those sus sites.
Someone's got dodgy fire stick, haven't they?
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. So the feds can't come for me because I've admitted I don't have one. So it's all good. But just from the Euros, you can see he looks very comfortable on the ball. He whipped in some great crosses into the box. Those were the main threat of kind of Turkey when they played, other than Arda Güler, who was an absolute baller. But
big baller.
Kadioglu was potentially their second best player.
I think so. Yeah.
I think, as you know, I'm a Portuguese man, so I watched them play Portugal, Turkey versus Portugal, and he was probably one of their only good players that game.
Yeah, they weren't great in that game, were they? So.
What do you make of him?
To be honest, I think that it's a bit of a no-brainer because the fullback position seems to be where we're lacking the most, especially with Barco going now. We're kind of light in that area in general. And I love him, but I don't want to see James Milner running back for when he was at Liverpool and he's playing left-back. I don't want to see that. I actually just don't. It's too... I'm already a big guy. The heart attacks do not need to be... I don't need to be queued up heart attacks when he's getting run at by a techie baller of a winger. So I think it's someone who... He's got a bit of an eye for goal. He's rapid. And for quite an attacking fullback, he's actually really not that bad going back towards goal as well, which is quite rare these days because every fullback is basically a winger now. But I think that it's a no-brainer purely because of his versatility. And I think once that gets over the line, obviously not sure whether it will, because there's not that long left in the window. But once it does, I think that will be it. And I think it's the one that we need to get done, and then we're done.
Yeah, I think if considering how stacked we are at several positions, mainly attacking wise, we are quite light defensively in terms of depth. And like you mentioned, Hinchelwood's playing left back at the moment. We aren't sure where that's his strongest position. He played right back last season. He played centre mid in his youth. He feels like just kind of a I'll slot in anywhere you want kind of player, and I'll
James
do it.
Milner reincarnated.
James Milner has well and truly taken him under his wing and gone, this is what you do. This is how you make your career last 85 years.
He goes, listen, mate, listen. Do you want to play 600 games? Just tell him you'll play anywhere and you'll be fine, mate. Don't worry.
Tell him you're desperate to play and you will get game time. There is one position I would like to see someone come in and which I don't think there's any talk of, and the Matt Hummels talk has obviously died down, but I would still love to see a centre-back. I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe it will happen in January, but
I think the only thing is about that is you don't want it to be our hands have been forced into like an emergency
Overplaying.
because it needs to be the right player.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as a club knows you're desperate, they're going to start bumping up the price.
Yeah,
And
especially when it gets this late in the transfer window.
Yeah, and if you're bumping up the price on a player that you don't even really want, that's not really that's not Tony Bloom business, is it? Really?
No, exactly.
So, yeah. Well, I hope that we at least get Kadioglu over the line, and then maybe we can pinch a young has to be a young centre back, by the way, right? Has to be a young centre back. Maybe we can pinch one from somewhere, and then you know what? The quadruple. Well, we can't get a quadruple, but what can we get? We can get a treble. We can get a cheeky treble
easily. It's not
yeah,
we can, we will.
Maybe, yeah, just a little treble, just a little calm treble. Why not? Right, Gara, it has been an absolute pleasure, mate.
It has indeed.
I have been your host with the most, Joe Richardson, and we will see you on Thursday with our crossover podcast with the Arsenal boys. It's going to be an interesting one, so make sure you tune in for that. Rate our podcast 5 stars, so together we can put some money into set up a scouting network for centre backs in the last couple of days of the transfer window. So it has been an absolute pleasure, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Farewell.
Ciao.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.